What's up, everybody out there in YouTube land? Ha! Bonus video! Okay, I couldn't stay away from this. I had to do the rest of it, alright? So there's no way I was going to let this go. So this is, of course, the other half of Escape from BackCells Prison. This is part 4, and this is by Popcross Studios. So we're doing the other half that I didn't do yesterday, alright? So let's get started here, right exactly where we left off, and go. Yeah, right there. With this
Day
weird looking
34.
guy. Some weird looking
Sort
shit
of.
there.
Our plan to train for another month didn't really pan out, since just after writing that last entry, I got about 4 hours of sleep before screaming and alarms jolted me awake. I whipped on the pads and clothes I'd gotten from Jerry and ran outside to see just people running around everywhere, scattering, scrambling to grab weapons. Some of them were fleeing to the forest. I had no idea what was up until a horrible shriek came from across the camp. Some villain was lifted up into the air and literally ripped in half. Through a mist of blood,
Jeez.
I saw someone I hoped I was never gonna see again. The towering, lobotomized serial killer, Skinner. He'd finally found us.
I thought he fell down to a much deeper
found
level.
me, and he started stomping right towards me. Some people attacked him, but he just totally ignored them. The cartoon guy suddenly summoned a bunch of cartoon characters to run at Skinner, and they all started attacking him, but it was just a brief distraction. I was gonna start running when Anna came up to me.
Jake, we have to get to the elevator now.
It was weird hearing Anna be so decisive, but she always got that way when we were in a fight. I didn't think we were ready. I know for sure we weren't ready, but I didn't know what other choice we had. We both sprinted over towards the elevator, going past Jerry and Samantha. They both saw where we were headed. Samantha sort of snorted and said, "Good luck, kids. Hope I don't see you again." But, you know, in a good way.
In a good way.
Show us how it's done, kids. Get out of here and prove it's possible. We thanked them both for all their help, then ran right up to the elevator and pressed the button.
You telling me this guy's like
It
so
dinged
invincible
and
that
opened
nothing can
so
stop him?
slowly
What?
that it felt like an eternity was going by. I turned to see Skinner was batting away the last of the cartoons as he marched after us. We finally were able to get into the elevator and press the only button in there, and we waited. And waited and waited. The doors
Really?
were moving so slowly that it seemed like they were never going to close. When they finally actually started to move, Skinner seemed to notice, and he booked it straight towards us. He tackled through Samantha and Jerry, stomped up to us, and dove into the elevator. And the doors closed behind him on all of us.
Ha!
We were dead. I was completely convinced that he was just going to shred us to pieces. We had nowhere to go. That is, until Anna grabbed my shoulder and held her breath. Anna had still never phased someone else successfully, but all I could do in that moment was hope. Skinner raised his massive palm, still dripping.
I like how her
with
power
blood,
is similar to
and
Goldo.
swung it right at me. But his hand went through us. It had actually worked. Anna had phased us both. I kinda wanted to cheer, but I knew we were far from out of trouble. Anna and I stood pressed up against the wall.
Like, what if
staring
you both
horrified
have to
up
hold
at
your
the
breath?
Freak as he waved his massive arms through our bodies, trying to grab us. I was panting like crazy, but
Okay,
Anna
so
kept
you did
her
it.
breath held. The second she took a breath, we'd become tangible again, and Skinner could tear us to pieces. And problem was, we had no idea how long this elevator ride was. Could Anna even make it? Every second felt like an hour, so I had no idea how long we were in there. But eventually, Anna's face started to go pale. Her eyes started to flutter shut. She was gonna hold her breath until she passed out.
Damn, girl.
For sure if she got knocked out, because either Skinner would kill her in here, or our murderer clones would get her out there. I didn't give myself a second to think. I ripped my arm free from her and ducked under Skinner's legs and leapt up onto his back, yelling at Anna to breathe. I wrapped my hands around Skinner's head and activated my powers, not even fully sure what I wanted to accomplish, just knowing I needed to keep him away from Anna. He whipped his flesh
spooged all over his head.
Me, but then slowed to a stop before grabbing me. I was still ready for an attack, but
You're healing him. You're healing his brain.
Kind of frozen, and Anna panted in breaths of air while I just stayed on Skinner, confused but not wanting to do anything different. Anna came up with an idea of what was going on before I could.
Skinner was lobotomized before getting sent into BackCells and then brainwashed by Bestar to do his bidding. What if your powers are healing his brain?
It made sense, but even that wasn't necessarily a good thing. He'd gotten
No.
lobotomized because he was a crazy serial killer in the first place. Still,
True.
keeping him from attacking us was for sure a good thing. Well, it lasted. After another minute, the elevator stopped, and all of us suddenly hovered up off the ground. My stomach shook and my throat knotted. My vision went insane for a sec, like I could see from a whole bunch of different sets of eyes. Then the door dinged open,
the cloning.
and we were all flung out into the flashing red hallway.
Oh, what?
I'd fallen off Skinner and leapt up to see where he and Anna were. I looked back towards the elevator, and as Jerry had said, I saw a whole bunch of other me's getting up, along with clones of Anna, and worse still, a bunch of clones of Skinner. The energy goggles were surprisingly letting me see which ones were the originals of each of us, because all the clones were giving off a slightly different sort of energy. I spotted Anna quick and called her over. She jumped up and ran towards me with her breath held. Some of the other hers and me's flailed their limbs at her as she ran, but she just went right through. She got to me and took some
So
deep
apparently they
breaths.
don't copy powers.
Okay, Jake, let's hope that your training paid off. Look out!
She grabbed me and suddenly a glowy yellow figure leapt right through us both. He rolled into some of the other me's, spun in a circle, and kicked 3 of them away before looking back at us. I turned so Anna could leap onto my back and activated my powers, hovering us up into the air, but then a voice called from behind me.
Wait, Jake, don't go!
Had I been tricked into holding an Anna clone? I whipped around just as the yellow guy leapt at us again and flew through us once more. He skidded to a stop in front of us, then said, in Anna's voice,
Oh, it
Don't
was
you
him.
want to stay and play, Jake?
From my back, Anna yelled,
Go, go, go! I'll phase you when we need it.
I fired forward, we shot through the yellow guy again, and soared down the halls, with a ton of us and Skinners just chasing on after. The fight for our lives was on.
So what about the other Skinner? What about Skinner, the real one? He's not fighting
The other
himself.
Annas were falling behind, but a bunch of Skinners were keeping up behind us, and some of the other me's had figured out their flying pretty quick.
Okay,
and
so
were
they
trying to
can copy
tackle us out
powers.
of the air. Anna kept phasing us so they'd fly through, but there were so many of them that she was barely getting chances to breathe. I tried to thrust out my arm to punch one of them that was coming in for an attack, but that almost made me fall out of the air. I really needed to focus on flying. Suddenly, my leg was grabbed from behind and yanked. I yelled out, but Anna quickly phased us again, and the hand slipped through. I glanced back
Oh,
to see
okay,
that
so
it was
she can be
the
very
yellow
selective.
guy, keeping up with us, running super fast, and now he was just waving his hand through our bodies so we couldn't phase back. He grinned and once more spoke in Anna's voice.
Phasing, huh? That's a pretty neat trick, Jake. You two are fun.
I tried swerving aside, but he followed us, his hand still in us. I kept trying
Pause.
to shake him, and I knew Anna needed to breathe. So finally, I glanced up and realized
Crafty
that the
cat.
ceiling was just high enough to get out of his reach. I flew up and had Anna practically scraping the ceiling, but she finally got a chance to breathe. Unfortunately, one of the me's took that chance. He tackled right into us and grabbed Anna off me. The weight change threw me off balance, and I spun through the air and crashed to the ground. I leapt up pretty quick, and
How come
just
they're not
got a glimpse
attacking
of
him,
Anna
though?
phasing away from one of the clones of me before the yellow guy came in and tackled me to the ground. He raised a fist to punch me, and I thought about hitting back, but then noticed that he had a deep cut running down his arm. Instead of attacking, I instinctively grabbed that and activated my healing. It stopped his swing, and in what I guess was his own actual voice, he said, "What in the... That feels good." What are you trying to do to me, kid?
You don't
He was
wanna hear
suddenly
that.
ripped off of me by a Skinner clone. I looked away and heard the yellow guy's horrible shriek, but really didn't want to watch another Skinner killing. I ran
Yeah.
back towards Anna, who was moving through 2 of the me's. She got through them, but another was flying down right behind her, and I didn't think she'd noticed. I was about to call out when the original Skinner suddenly snatched my clone out of the air and tried to force the clone's hand onto his head. The clone just
Oh,
punched and thrashed.
he wanted
the
more
Skinner
healing.
And just slammed it into the ground before reaching for another one of me. Anna got to me and grabbed my arm to phase us, but instead of flying off, I pointed her at what Skinner was doing. I asked her, "Do you think you can phase 3 people at once?" Once again, I
Bruh.
appreciated how decisive Anna was when we were in a fight. She ran with me over to Skinner, who was hammering his fist against one of his own clones, and we both jumped up onto his back. I grabbed his head and started healing again. Anna phased us so a bunch of attacks that were incoming could go through us. Skinner let out a surprisingly peaceful sigh as I tried to heal him. I then spoke into his ear. "I don't know if you can understand me, but if you can get us through here, I'll keep healing you." He groaned, but then turned and continued sprinting full tilt down the hall,
Forward!
going even faster than we'd been flying.
Rabid heavy
Some
taming
of the
engineer.
other limbs were still on their tail, but any time they swung at us, Anna would phase us all. Skinner swung back, and Anna tried to make sure he was tangible when he did, so his hits would land. That went on for at least 2 hours. I had no idea how long Skinner could go for, but he didn't even seem to be getting tired as we shot through the
Well, if you're
very red
healing on
walls,
him, it might be
eventually lost
improving
the
his
other
stamina.
guns, and fired past any other villains in this place. We were like a trio perfectly built to get through this place, and we were actually getting through. After a few hours, I started to see something bright in the distance. It was like a glowing yellow beacon. I thought it might be an exit, but then I realized it wasn't a light that was actually illuminating anything. I took my goggles off for a second, and it vanished. I realized that what I was seeing wasn't a light source, it was an energy source.
The key.
Anna saw it too. It actually could be the key. I could barely believe it. Skinner kept running and we got closer and closer until we were close enough to see that the energy was coming from a figure. As we approached and finally saw the silhouette of the person, I suddenly felt really faint. I thought it was just from overusing my powers at first, but soon my body completely failed me. At the exact same time, Anna and I flopped off Skinner's back to the ground. Right after that, Skinner stopped too, and seemed to be in a trance. We were all just stuck in this hazy state. All our bodies were just swaying, and I felt like I needed to spew. The figure walked closer, and I quickly realized that it was the bird-skulled lady who had killed Gakwalid. My vision was fading. Just looking at this freak seemed to be making us sick, but I couldn't look away either. She slowly walked towards us.
Nice
and
effect
I
there
knew
in the eye.
what was coming. A beak right through all of our skulls. But then I realized something. The energy wasn't coming off of her. It was coming off of her back. Like how Gakwalid had gestured to his own back before he'd been killed. Under
He
her
was
cape
telling
was some kind of
people.
big cluster of fur that looked like it could have hid
He was
something
trying to tell
inside it,
people
almost
it's
like a
on her back.
That was where the energy was coming from. She walked up to Skinner, then hovered up off the ground to be eye level to the giant.
You got pretty far, but the warden says only those who are worthy may escape. Are you worthy?
She raised her neck slowly backwards. I didn't know if her beak could break through his hard head, but I didn't want to find out. I realized Skinner had only stopped after I'd fallen off, so maybe my healing had been keeping him safe from her... whatever her power
There
is
you
that's
go.
making us sick. I swung my shoulders as best I could and managed to flop my body to the ground and thrust my arm out. My fingers just barely reached Skinner's heel, and I activated my powers as best I could. I used every inch of my energy to try and get my green goop to creep up towards his head. It seemed like I was too late. She thrust her beak forward, but within an inch of her face, Skinner thrust his arm up and caught her. He swung out his other arm to grab her leg, then lifted her into the air, and I closed my eyes as he tore her in half.
Damn.
The dizziness and sickness in my body instantly went away. I got back up onto Skinner and started healing him again to make sure he stayed friendly, and Anna ran over where Skinner had tossed the lady's torso. Anna whipped the cape and fur out of the way and grabbed the energy-spewing object. It didn't look
Spewing?
like
You
it
really
could,
had to
be
say it like
honest,
that?
but we both knew right there that this weirdly carved, I don't know, I guess shard of a golden orb was our ticket out of BackCells.
Orb. This character, this design kind of looks familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen it before. It looks very familiar, though.
We spent another hour
I think it's
or
just
so
the bird
running
head.
through the level on Skinner's back, phasing through enemies until we finally got to the door at the end of the level. We literally tackled through it, but the pieces of the door just instantly reforged behind us as we did. We burst through into a blank white room, and we'd gotten out. Pretty quickly, the golden orb shard lit up and a spiral staircase suddenly opened into the floor, going down and down below us. We gestured for Skinner to go in, and he did. We walked down for about 5 minutes through darkness until we were submerged into what looked like an empty library. Or almost empty anyway. There were a bunch of skeletons and some decaying bodies. On the ceiling above, there were intricately painted letters spelling out "The End," followed by a question mark. At first I was
Seriously,
terrified that
dude?
maybe this wasn't the end, but after a moment of looking around, we found some writing painted
That's
on
cliche
the wall
as hell.
that said, "Need the key. Fight for your life." Luckily, we'd been there and done that. Our best guess was that some people had come here without having gotten the key and had just been trapped here and starved or something. Anna and I were both exhausted, and I had no idea how much longer I could keep
Oh, this is our
healing Skinner before I
protagonist.
just passed out. But we had to keep looking. Even if, as Samantha had warned us, something just as bad was waiting for us when we got out of BackCells. After half an hour of looking around, we found a weirdly dark wall that had a circular indent in it. It kinda looked like the golden rock we'd found could fit right in. So we gave it a shot.
Why the hell not,
Anna
right?
leapt off Skinner, stepped forward, and placed the rock into the hole. It lit up the entire wall, then a beam shot at Anna's chest. It seemed like it was scanning her. Then the wall around the orb flashed through a whole bunch of different locations until it stopped on a lake surrounded by trees. Anna was frozen for a second, then turned around with tears in her eyes.
Wherever her home is.
We did it.
It clicked in a second later that this was the lake she swam in back home. She leapt back onto Skinner, but her happiness had already slipped a bit. I guessed she was thinking about Kate, so I put a hand on her shoulder and said, "Kate would be proud of you. She wanted you to get out."
Yeah.
Anna smiled a sad smile and nodded as we gestured Skinner forward. He walked through the opening, and for the first time in weeks, I took in a deep, beautiful inhale of fresh air. We'd escaped from BackCells prison. But
No one
our
escapes.
problems were far from over. When we turned around, the library and the key were just gone. I thought about jumping off Skinner, but didn't know what he'd do if I stopped healing him. Was he still going to be a threat to us?
Probably.
After a second, though, the sort of solution unfortunately found us. A black puddle opened up beneath us, and two octopus tentacles shot out, grabbed Anna and I off Skinner, and slammed us to the ground. The puddle then shifted into what looked like a demonic shark head and snapped right around him and pulled him into the ground, and then just vanished. I was horrified that it was some villain of BackCells, but the smell
I
of the
followed
air
you.
was too pure here. It didn't have the awful musk of that place.
Musk.
We were out. Anna and I
Mask.
ran over to each other, and she grabbed
Mask.
me to phase us from whatever was here. Soon, a puff of black smoke appeared from nowhere before us. It swirled through the air and shifted and solidified into a figure, sitting cross-legged, hovering in the air before us. It was a girl, not much older than us, but with pitch black, flaking skin, yellow eyes, and glowing symbols spinning around on her forearm. She looked at us
Okay.
both, seeming tired and angry and confused all at once. "You two actually escaped from BackCells prison. That's impressive." I was exhausted and freaked out, but still managed to say, Who are you, and what did you just do to Skinner?" She looked at me. "I don't really have a name anymore. Nowadays,
Anymore?
people just tend to refer to me as Fear herself, but call me what you will. As for your friend, I sent him back. This world was not his home anyhow." Did she mean she'd sent him back to BackCells?
Probably.
I then asked, are you the one who sent us there in the first place?" I stammered, failing completely to sound intimidating at all.
Yeah.
"I'm the overseer of
Best
our
threatening
world,
is a
and you
cocker
violated
spaniel.
the rules of our world, even if you didn't know you were doing so." She hovered towards me and reached her hand towards me. Then the green gem in my hand suddenly made my arm thrust away from her against my will. "Yes, you unfortunately found something that I've long wished to banish from our world. I can't touch or affect those gems myself, but I can banish their users to my beloved's prison. Multiple times.
My beloveds?
If I must." Before I could think of more to ask, she twirled some of the symbols on her forearm, and the black puddle opened up beneath us again. Samantha's warnings suddenly made sense. What
Yeah.
was something just as bad as getting sent to BackCells
Going
prison,
back.
getting sent there again? Anna and I both yelled at her to stop, and she raised a hand to quiet us. "I will make you both a deal. I'm impressed that you managed to escape. You have earned freedom, But nobody in our world is permitted to have abilities like the ones you gain from those crystals without my permission. Remove the crystals.
Can we have your
allow them
permission?
to find new hosts, and you are free to go back to your lives as normal. My horror at being sent back was just kind of overtaking my decision making, and I pretty instantly grabbed at the gem and tried to pull it out. Fear saw that and said, "Tap 3 times and say, 'Gem of the Angelic, I relinquish your mind.'" I
Angelic?
tapped it 3 times, started to speak, before noticing the mumbling coming from next to me. I stopped and looked at Anna, who was shaking and stammering to herself.
If we lose our powers, we can never even think about going back to get Kate, but she also wanted us to be free, and we are free now. But if we give up the gems and other people get them, then those people are going to be sent to BackCells, and I have no idea what...
Fear hovered up to Anna with her head tilted and said, "This should be an easy choice, and as such, I'm giving you 5 seconds to decide." Anna just started
She makes a good
stammering
point. If it
more
goes to
and
somebody
more,
else and somebody
more
else innocent
pros
gets
and
sent
cons
back
of
there
the scenario,
just because this lady
Fear
wants to be a
started
bitch.
Counting down. 5. Anna wasn't going to decide in time. 4. I didn't know if I could live with the idea either that someone else might get sent into BackCells if they got this gem next. 3.
Yeah.
Maybe the gems would just come back to us anyway. 2.
That's a
Anna
possibility,
was in
too.
tears and looking over at me as she kept on stammering. 1. My decision was made. I kept my gem in and swung my fist as hard as I could at Fear's face. I think I hit pretty hard, but who knows how much pain she can take. I grabbed Anna and tried to run with her. I felt it would phase both of our bodies, but it didn't really help. The black jaw lunged up from beneath us and clamped around us. For a moment, there was nothing. Then we dropped through a ceiling and fell onto a damp carpet in a musty yellow room. We were back at the start of BackCells prison. Skinner
Reset.
was surprisingly sat up against a wall nearby with his head in his hands. Anna was bawling now.
Jake, I'm sorry. I couldn't decide. I couldn't you...
I grabbed her and gave her a hug.
There's a possibility they
Still
made the right
terrified
choice.
myself, but trying not to show it. It's okay, Anna. I chose for us. It was about time I made a real decision here anyway, right?
Hey,
I was
clock
surprised
that
how
bitch
calm
one.
I was managing to keep myself, because I definitely wasn't feeling calm. I leaned back from her and wiped a tear off her cheek. It does suck that we're back, but, you know, as Kate said, maybe everything that sucks is good for you. We'll figure out how to get out again, and this time we're not going without Kate. Anna did her best to smile.
Continued.
I think if she was trying to smile, it really wasn't working well. She nodded, still shaking, or I don't know, maybe I was shaking.
Both
I didn't
were.
know
They probably
if we
both
really
were.
could do this again, if we'd made the right choice, but at least this time we would end up having a little bit more help. We found a safe-ish place to hide and finally got some sleep. I have no idea how long we were out for, but it felt like a fairly long time, though eventually we were woken up by what sounded like some kind of laser getting fired. Anna and I both heard it and leapt up, rested enough to fight, when around the corner came running I'm not even kidding, a gopher in a ripped tuxedo holding a gun. It just kind of looked at us, and us back at it. Was this thing some kind of super villain? Had someone really sent a gopher in here? Then another figure came running around the corner. He had a blue padded outfit, one of his arms was metal and the other one was on fire. He said, "Hey, Gooby, wait up, little buddy. How are you so fast? You're just a little..." The flamey-armed guy stopped when he saw us. He looked up at Skinner, then down at Anna and me, and he gave us a surprisingly warm, if a bit confused, smile, and said, "Hi there, kids," and, giant blood-covered man. Yeah, but any chance one of you knows where we can find a guy named Dresden?
So they're looking for the warden. Okay, I'm sure this connects to some of his other stories that he's put together. God, I want a fucking comic of this shit.
And that concludes Chapter 4 of the Escape from BackCells Prison.
More.
I don't actually know for sure how I'm going to do the next chapter, because I also have to explain how Sterling got himself trapped in BackCells, so
Yeah.
I may make it like a Multiverse Tales kind of story with two... I'll figure it out, but it's gonna be a fun one. And probably the last chapter, unless I split it into two. But ignoring that for a moment, I want to say thank you so much to everyone that submitted for this redraw. It was a really fun one. I really enjoyed this, and specific
That's
thank
pretty
you to
cool.
the people who were selected: Xylan Tunes, Olivia Nealer, Crafty Cat, Ark in a Pamphlet, and Daniel
okay,
Tang.
okay.
That was a great redraw, but we're gonna roll right into the prompt
So
for this next month. I want all of you out there to submit your own original Pokemon, or Fakeamon, however you want to call, your own original.
Yeah, that's right. He has the
Pokemon.
Fakeamon
And
as
most likely going to take
SCPs.
them and turn them into SCPs.
There you go.
Which was something someone recently suggested in the comments, but I went back and tried to find that comment and I couldn't find it anywhere, even by
Aw.
searching specific things. So sorry to that person, or multiple people if multiple people have suggested that. But yeah, Pokemon as SCPs is most likely what I'm doing this month. Maybe I'll turn the Pokemon into a bunch of different things, like a variety of... We'll see. It's probably Fakeamon as SCPs. Instructions on screen, all that kind of stuff, deadlines, whatever, blah,
Pokemon
blah, blah.
into
But besides
supervillains
that, that's
or
all for today,
superheroes.
except, of
That'd be
course,
good.
we're ending this video on some kind of positive...
Put some of them in the
inspiring
BackCells
note.
prison.
And the thought
That'd be
I want to
very
leave
cool.
people with today is a nice simple quote. Forgive yourself for not doing better when you didn't know better. You can't change the way you acted in the past, but what you can do is make sure you are acting as your best self now and in the future. I hope that's inspiring to someone.
pretty
out there.
good,
Thanks so
actually.
much for watching,
That's a
everybody.
pretty good
I love
one.
you
That's
all,
a
and
pretty
I'll
good
see you all
line.
in
I
the
like
next
that.
episode on Friday. Goodbye.
All right, so so that was a pretty good one. I do hope he does more of this, and I do want to see more of his, multiverse thing that he's been doing. God, this guy needs to have a comic book deal. Ugh. People need to get onto this. Anyway, all right, you guys know the drill. Like this video, subscribe. Definitely click on the link to the original. Like and subscribe over at Popcross. And I will see you guys next time. Don't forget to suggest any kind of spooky, creepy, scary videos in the comments for Spooky Month. And I'll see you guys next time. Tune in every day for new content. Bye-bye.